We'll do a roll call. Hold on, please. And this meeting is live. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all to the regents who are here with us for our annual joint meeting of the Academic and Student Affairs Committee and the Human Resources Committee to hear our report of the annual sexual misconduct reporting structure that we have a presenter, Angela Simone, who is, oh, Angela, you have multiple titles, and so I'll let you introduce yourself after I do a quick roll. So from the ASA committee, Regent Bloom.
Present.
Regent James.
Present.
Regent McCarthy. He is here. We know he's here. He's calling in from Spain, so I'm going to record his presence. Regent Porth. Absence is noted. And from the Human Resources Committee, Regent Balducci.
Here.
Regent Japanen.
Present.
And Regent Wright. Thank you. And Angelo, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you.
Regent Porth is here.
Pardon me?
Regent Porth
and
has
there's
just joined.
Regent Porth. Thank you. Thank you for recognizing that. Thank you. Angelo, I have made you a presenter, so you should be all set to share your PowerPoint.
Thank you.
And we could see the screen, the PowerPoint?
We can.
Awesome. All right, good morning, everyone. My name, for those of you that might not know me, is Angelo Simone. I serve as the Senior Executive Director for Student Relations, Compliance, and Equity for the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities, and also the CSU Title IX Coordinator. It's my pleasure to be here this morning to talk with this group about the 2022 Public Act 1411 Sexual Misconduct Report Summary, which is mandated by board policy, to discuss these numbers and some of the initiatives that are taking place on the campuses with regard to the important work that's being done around this subject. So without further ado, I'll get started. This presentation today is done to support and to meet the requirement, which is in the Sexual Misconduct Support Services Policy on the board, as approved by the Board of Regents with regard to our sexual violence statistics at CSU for the year 2022. A couple of important terms that will come up in this report. The speaker box, there we go. There's two different ways that we classify, according to state law, the way that we look at our cases on the campus as it relates to sexual misconduct. The report, which means a document filed by a complainant or signed by the Title IX coordinator on our campuses alleging sexual harassment against a respondent and requesting that the institution investigate the allegation of sexual harassment. At the time of the filing, the formal complaint, the complainant must be participating in or attempting to participate in an education program or activity of our institution. So the shorter version is a report is a request from a complainant for the college or university to investigate a sexual misconduct claim. A disclosure is the receipt of any communication of an incident of sexual misconduct that is not accompanied by the request for an investigation or adjudication by the institution. So the reports and disclosures really go to the heart of what our statistics look like on the campuses and the way that our campuses respond. The disclosures are important because although there's not a request for investigation, there are the assignment of resources on the campuses to students who might need resources assigned to them, whether that's counseling services, academic adjustments, or other measures that would help them be successful in the classroom as a result of reporting the disclosure. So in terms of our 2022 data at our Connecticut State Universities, we had a total of 10 reports of sexual assault, 4 of stalking, 5 of intimate partner violence, And these are classified under the state law in terms of what those definitions are, the sexual assault, the stalking, and intimate partner violence. So we do find and follow state law with regard to those definitions, in addition to our policies that are approved by the board with regard to what those definitions are. At our community colleges, we had 1 report of sexual assault, 4 of stalking, 1 of intimate partner violence. And for Charter Oak, which is actually not required to file this report, but I did want to share their data, they had 0 reports for all the categories listed. And that's mostly because they're mostly an online presence and don't have students in residence halls or students on the campus on a regular basis. To break down the data a little bit further, for CCSU, we had 4 cases of sexual assault, 0 of stalking, 2 of intimate partner violence. Eastern, 1 sexual assault, 0 stalking, and 1 intimate partner violence. For SCSU, Southern Connecticut, 2 sexual assault, 2 stalking, and 2 intimate partner violence. And then Western, 3 sexual assault reports, 2 stalking, and no intimate partner violence cases. As it relates to the community colleges. And before I jump into the community colleges, I do want to note that we did have 276 disclosures of sexual misconduct at our Connecticut state universities. So comprising the 4 Central, Southern, Eastern, and Western, 276 individuals came forward, students, to the universities requesting support services, either for something that might have happened to them off campus with relation to sexual misconduct, something that happened maybe in their childhood or in the past. And those 276 individuals were provided support resources on the campus. So whether that's counseling and psychological services, connection to off-campus resources, and possibly academic adjustments should they had to, miss class to get counseling or to travel to get medical help or things of the like. So although the reported numbers of actual investigations are low at the Connecticut State Universities based on the numbers I just shared with you, our offices of student affairs, Title IX, the police department are really busy in terms of providing these disclosures, those students with the support needed to be successful on the campus and to make sure that they get the help they needed. Gateway Community College, 2 stalking incidents, 1 intimate partner violence. Housatonic, 1 sexual assault, 1 stalking report, and 0 intimate partner violence. And Tunxis, there was a total of 0 sexual assault, 1 stalking, and 0 intimate partner violence. At the community colleges, just based on their composition in terms of not being non-residential, students generally come to the campus for a finite period of time during the day. They're generally not open on the weekends and obviously don't have a residential population. In terms of disclosures, our community colleges saw a total of 8 disclosures where students were seeking assistance, whether it's academic adjustments, connection to counseling and mental health resources, or on-ground counseling, depending on what the circumstances that presented themselves. And Pam, I can't see the video because I have the presentation open. So if there's people that have questions or if they want to wait till the end, feel free to interrupt me and just let me know.
I'll watch for hands raised.
Thank you. In 2022, we had a total of 25 investigations and student reports system-wide. That includes our Connecticut community colleges, CT State, and the state universities. In comparison, last year we had 21 total investigations and student reports system-wide. Some reports did not move to an investigation due to the complainant not wishing to proceed. And in that case, the college or the university would make sure that they had conducted a proper threat assessment, risk assessment to make sure that even though an investigation didn't move forward, that the college, faculty, staff, and students and the community were safe and that there wasn't a further risk to the campus by not proceeding. So those are what our statistics look like for 2022 as compared to 2021. In terms of outcomes as it relates to student cases of sexual misconduct, in terms of the data that we collect as a system, in 12 cases, the student was found not responsible or no violation. What that means is that the investigation ensued. The outcome was after a hearing or after an administrative process or conference that the student accused or the respondent was found not responsible or there was no violation found. In one case, we had a student that was found responsible and either received suspension or expulsion from CSU. And in 3 cases, the student was found responsible and given either a probation or some type of warning based on the severity of the violation and what had come up in the administrative conference or the hearing. In all of these cases, there was 1 appeal and the appeal was upheld. Last year, the board had asked for some comparison data, so I want to include our data from 2021 in terms of what our numbers look like at the CSUs and the community colleges and Charter Oak. Again, like this year, Charter Oak 0 reports based on their mostly online presence. The community colleges, you might remember, were starting to reopen from COVID-19 and repopulate the campuses. Which would, in my mind, attribute to our low numbers, 0 numbers at the community colleges. And then, the CSUs had students living on campus in the residence halls, although not at full max capacity. We did see some reports of sexual assault, stalking, and intimate partner violence at the CSUs during our 2021 data comparison. When we talk about this data, it's important for our communities on the campuses and also our external communities, parents, faculty, staff, to know what the resources that our campuses provide to our students. So we've really taken a proactive measure, especially with our online presence. And you'll see a little bit more in these slides what I mean by that. So the 1411 public act of sexual violence reports, they are required each year by state law to be published on this Higher Education and Advancement Committee website, which the link is here. So all of our CSU reports are published there from this year, previous years. So if you'd like to look at the individual reports, you can definitely do that. There's a lot of great things and resources going on the campuses that obviously I couldn't highlight here, but if you want to take a deeper dive, you're able to do that. And the General Counsel website on the ct.edu website has been enhanced to include information about Title IX, who the Title IX coordinators are, what Title IX is, how students can file complaints on their campuses should they need assistance, then obviously local connections to community resources. Since each of our campuses is in a different geographic location, we wanted to make sure that students have access to these resources, whether it's in Bridgeport or Willimantic or New Britain. We wanted to make sure that students know where they can go to seek help, whether that's at 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night on a Saturday night. So there really has been a concerted effort to make sure that this information is readily available to enhance the student experience and to make sure students can find the information they need to be, to get the help that they need. And this is a link to, this is a screenshot of the Title IX coordinators page on the ct.edu website. As I mentioned, I serve as a system Title IX coordinator and work with the local campus Title IX coordinators to make sure that they get the support and assistance they needed to meet our students and assist them. This screenshot talks a little bit more from our website about what the 1411 Act is, what the requirements are, and additional reading and information. In addition to that, all of our campuses have campus resource teams, although the nomenclature might be a little bit different depending on the campus. But these resource teams come together from the different areas in student affairs and academic affairs to make sure that if there are students of concern or students that might need assistance, and not just relating to sexual misconduct, it could be mental health, it could be academic issues, it could be other types of problematic behavior, that there is a one-stop shopping, so to speak, where these campus resources from counseling, student affairs, student conduct, the police department, and others can come together in a non-punitive way to assist the student to make sure that they're successful in the classroom and outside the classroom, and then hopefully ensure that they're retained as a student at that college or university. Here's a screenshot to the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee. This is the website that houses all the 14-11 reports from this year and previous years. And it's not just CSCU that files these reports, it's every college and university in the state of Connecticut that does. So you're able to look at, compare data, find different resources, and see what the different institutions are doing to meet this important need on the campuses. terms of training, partnerships, and resources on the campuses, they're vast, and there's many different offerings depending on if you're at CT State, one of those institutions, as opposed to the state universities. But one way that the system office has tried to coordinate training to make sure that all of the campuses under CSCU have access to the same information as it relates to our student misconduct policy, the student code of conduct, and the sexual misconduct policy, which Title IX falls under, is to partner with SUNY, which is the State University of New York, SCI Student Conduct Institute. This allows for all of our faculty, staff, and others that are involved in the Title IX proceedings, whether they're a hearing officer, whether they're an investigator, maybe they're an adjudicator or part of a hearing board or an appeals process, to have the same training across the community colleges and the state universities to ensure that all of our Title IX cases, our sexual misconduct cases, are handled in a congruent and fair and impartial way. And the SUNY SCI is an online training platform that gives our faculty and staff that are involved in this process access to that. And it trains them annually and allows them to receive certificates based on that training to ensure that they're compliant with understanding the way that the law works, what the Title IX procedures require, how to conduct a fair hearing, how to conduct a fair and impartial appeals process, how to be victim-centered, but also to ensure the rights of the respondent are upheld and follow our policies and procedures. So SUNY SCI is what's deployed across our entire system to make sure that the experience at Gateway is a similar experience, if not the same, to the experience at Eastern or Southern or Central as it relates to Title IX processes and procedures. So we're very happy to be working with them. A couple of the different training options for professional development for our staff, the neurobiology of sexual assault, how to resolve Title IX cases in an informal nature, and then basic compliance training are just a few of the different offerings that SUNY SCI offers via the contract we have with them to ensure that our Title IX coordinators, our deputy Title IX coordinators, are trained and up to date on new and changing information. Timely care is also what we're using at the community colleges in Charter Oak at the moment for, in addition to supporting on-ground counseling and resources with counseling staff for students that might need, mental health counseling, whether they're on the campus or off the campus. Timely Care, we partnered with them originally with COVID money from the federal government, and that contract has continued and allows community college students and Charter Oak students access to individual counseling sessions, in addition to doctor type appointments with a physician's assistant or a medical assistant via a virtual platform, whether they're on the college campus or at home or in Connecticut or in Florida on spring break. Access to these types of mental and health care that they don't need to have insurance for, that is covered for by the college under this contract, and it's going very well in terms of the collaboration with the campus resources on ground. Talked a little bit about this, including the individual counseling visits, and these could also be for sexual assault, domestic violence, and stalking victims. These are on demand, so if a student is having an issue at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, they have the ability to go through their Timely Care app and log in and get mental health assistance or meet with a medical provider. These are all licensed, board certified providers. They'll discuss symptoms. They'll develop a treatment plan. They can also prescribe certain medication under certain circumstances and work with local pharmacies and pharmacists to make sure that students get the medication that they need. At the Connecticut State Universities, Eastern, Central, Southern, and Western, the on-ground presence for counseling and psychological services is robust, and they all have a multitude of information on their counseling websites, in addition to different resources that students on their campuses can use after hours, whether that's 988 for mental health emergencies, or working with their local providers in the geographic area where the campuses are to ensure that students get the help that they need in conjunction with the counseling staff on the campuses. Across our system, in terms of training for students, we feel that it's important for our students to know what constitutes a sexual misconduct violation and what is Title IX and how they can go about navigating that and the local resources if they need it on their campus. So not anymore is a training through Vector Solutions that the system manages on a system enterprise contract through my office that allows for all students at the community colleges and state universities to be trained via an interactive training program about Title IX and the Violence Against Women Act, about interpersonal violence, how it's prevented, what they can do to report it. Consent is big, what constitutes consent as it relates to, sexual relation, dating violence, what stalking is, how a student can be a bystander and intervene in these types of issues, should they be present for it, in addition to what our policies and procedures are on the campuses. As you know, the board approves policies and the campuses implement procedures to implement that board approved policies. And it's important for our students to know what those policies are to make sure that they're able to adhere to the guidelines and the parameters set forth in them. In addition, students and faculty and staff have been trained in bringing in the bystander, which is a disruption type program, evidence-based, that allows people that are witnessing this type of behavior to intervene in an effective and safe way. So if they see something, they can say something and hopefully disrupt the behavior, report it to the proper authorities, and get the person the help that they need. This really takes on bringing in the bystander, a community effort to make sure that our campuses are safe and that students know where to report these types of issues and concerns on the campus. Just sharing some additional resources on our campuses that I highlighted. And again, all of our campuses are doing great things. This is a highlight from Eastern on who to contact, information on advocates, on how to get assistance for students, where to make a report, how to receive accommodations in the event that a student that's affected by a Title IX or sexual misconduct type of violation can receive assistance on the campus and both off the campus. Different flyers and posters in terms of resources that students could get, whether it's victim advocates, support advisors, academic accommodations, interim supportive measures, and we also do make the connection on the campuses to law enforcement, whether that's the campus law enforcement or the local geographic law enforcement should the need arise. Central has done a red flag campaign, which is a public awareness campaign. It talks about and addresses dating violence to prevent prevention of that on the college campuses. And again, we talked about the bystander intervention strategy. So these are some of the ways that our campuses really do a great job, in my opinion, bringing awareness to this important issue to make sure that people are aware of it. All of our campuses have memorandums of understandings or MOUs with community sexual assault and domestic violence programs in their areas based on the geographic area that they're located. So in addition to the on-campus resources, whether it's the Title IX office or the counseling center, or whether they use timely care or not, there's also community partners in the community where the college and university is located that our students have access to and that our campuses will make referrals to, whether that's for training, English and Spanish speakers, confidential counseling off campus that's free, whether there's hospital accompaniments, and then there's also assistance in these local providers with navigating criminal and courts procedures should the need arise for that. So CSU does a good job in terms of connecting all these different resources and making sure that we leverage the community partnerships to assist us with this important work. Flyer from Gateway in terms of their local community resources. The Connecticut Alliance to End Sexual Violence is another partner that we work with to enhance our training and to make sure students get the resources that they need. And then this map here shows the coverage for the state of Connecticut based on which agency our campuses would work with after hours or on the weekends with regard to sexual misconduct claims or issues where we can make connections. So as you can see, the state is covered and we do have relationships with these organizations and agencies as a result. In terms of our Title IX plan, really the bread and butter is the ongoing training for students and employees, both virtual and in person. We want to make sure that our faculty, staff, and students are aware of our policies and our procedures, but at the same time, know what the resources are and who to contact should they run into an issue or concern and how to get support on the campuses. and really meeting people where they're at. So whether that's, meeting with them virtually to discuss the complaint, or meeting with them in person, or connecting them with resources. It's really a multi-pronged approach, and we couldn't do that without the important work that the employees do, the faculty and staff do on the campuses day in and day out in this area. And obviously, the community partnerships are extremely important because our colleges and universities don't have the bandwidth without them to be able to assist students, especially after hours, on nights and weekends, when the college or university is generally not open. So those community partnerships are very important. And counseling and advocacy services. Counseling is robust at the state university. There's always room for more. But timely care has filled a gap at CT State, in my opinion, in terms of allowing for students who would seek counseling or healthcare appointments to have access to that, who might not have insurance, that have free access to it. And there also has been additional hiring at CT State for counselors on each of the campuses, each of the community college campuses, to supplement this on-ground work with some of the virtual options, because students don't always respond to virtual options or vice versa. So I had mentioned a multi-pronged approach, and that's really what the goal is, to make sure that we can meet these students where they're at, provide them resources, and ensure that they have a positive college experience. And then lastly, there's case triage and consult that occurs between the system office, me, the Title IX coordinator, and our state universities, community colleges, and Charter Oak. So whether our campus has a deputy Title IX coordinator on it or a Title IX coordinator, or one that serves for whether it's CT State or the state universities, there's constant collaboration and communication back and forth to make sure that whether it's a policy that might need editing or enhancement or changes or additional resources that are needed or used, it's an ongoing, two-way flow of communication back and forth, which has proved to be beneficial and helpful for advancing this work forward. And with that, I can take any questions. I can stop the presentation so I can see people's faces. And I know Pam will make this available as part of the minutes, the presentation. So you're welcome to take a look at it at your leisure, should you want to do that.
Questions? No questions from the regents. I know we have some. I know we have some folks on board for the ASA committee. Our provosts from the field. Anyone have any questions? Any of our participants who are with us today? Going once? Twice?
No question, just a comment that it seems like a very well thought out, comprehensive program, and commend the university for the whole system for the thoroughness of this presentation and report, and just the process that's in place.
Yeah, Pam, I agree with Regent James. I think that this is a really good report, and it makes me rest easier. I think that we take this very seriously, and I appreciate the work that everyone put into this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no other comments or questions, thank you for those supportive remarks. And Angelo, thank you very much for taking the time today to provide us with our annual reporting requirement. And I would like to thank our Human Resources Committee members of the board who are with us today for this portion of the meeting today. So with that, we can take a pause, and the HR committee members can drop off the call, and we can hold on just for a few minutes and wait to I'll turn the meeting over to Regent Bloom for the academic and student affairs portion of our day's work. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Pam.
Thank you. Okay. And Regent Bloom, I believe.
I'm still on. I'm sorry, Pam. I'm getting off. Thank you, and thanks for a great report, by the way.
Thank you, Rich. Okay, Regent Bloom, I believe the floor is yours, and Kayla is online with us to take your roll call for the Academic and Student Affairs Committee.
Thank you. I'm calling the meeting of the Academic Student Affairs Committee October meeting to order. I'll ask the secretary to call the roll of the committee, please. Kayla?
Thank you. Regent Bloom,
Present.
Regent James,
Present.
Regent McCarthy, Regent McCarthy.
You're on mute, Jim.
He's here. Regent Porth.
Present.
And I'd also just like to take a moment to recognize our ex officio member, Professor Sasinker, and we have a quorum.
Thank you.
And excuse me, we do have another ex officio.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just want to make sure that we recognize Chief Workforce Officer Kelly Valeries. Wave to everyone, Kelly. And I believe Dr. Jutani was going to join us as well. I don't see her, but she might be.
Yeah, I didn't see her either, but if she comes, I'll be certain to announce her arrival.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pam. The first item is the approval of the minutes of the prior meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Any comments on the previous minutes? Questions? Anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the previous minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Previous minutes are approved. Thank you. We have the first item is a consent item. Next item is the discontinuation of the paralegal option in the Justice and Law Administration program at Western. This is connected to a below threshold item on the agenda, 6A1. I will ask Provost Cathoria to proceed with this, if I may.
Thank you, Regent Bloom. Western Connecticut State University seeks the approval for the discontinuation of the paralegal option in the BS Justice and Law Administration program. Provost Missy Alexander will speak to the item and introduce colleagues as needed to comment and answer questions.
Provost Alexander.
Thank you. Good morning. As you noted, Regent Bloom, this is related to we are replacing some options in our Justice and Law Administration program. The paralegal program, we have actually phased out. There's nobody left in it. We had diminishing interest in that for many years, although we still offer a writing course related to it for anybody who's interested in that. It doesn't have the enrollment for the option. So that is why we're phasing that out. I don't know if you'd like me to speak to the other below threshold in this conversation or wait, but that we've just pivoted to a more in-demand area.
I think you probably should, because we're not going to, that's below threshold, so
Sure.
It's an informational item for the board, so I would appreciate whatever connection you want to make would be appropriate to make now.
Absolutely. So we have added instead an option in Homeland Security, which is of increasing interest among our students. Please note that our Justice and Law Administration program has robust enrollments. So we anticipate that concentration will be easily filled, our option as we call it here. But it's also important to know that we launched a master's in Homeland Security last year, and we anticipate that there will be some interest to proceed for students from the undergrad to the graduate. So we're just opening up those pathways. As you know, Homeland Security speaks to things about, international issues, but it's also about the recent floods and the management that we have. So the students have a wide range of areas that they're going to go into for this. And so this just helps open the doors for them.
Thank you. Any comments from the regents on the discontinuation? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the discontinuation?
So moved.
Second? Second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Regent Porth. Wouldn't want it to fail for lack of a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion is approved. Next item is item 4, action item, the Accelerated Bachelor of Science program in nursing at Western, which is a second degree program. Is there a motion to put this on the table for
So moved.
consideration? Second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Provost Kathoria.
Thank you, Regent Bloom. Western Connecticut State University seeks the approval for a new accelerated Bachelor of Science nursing program. Once again, Provost Alexander will speak to the item and introduce colleagues as needed to comment and answer questions.
Thank you so
Provost
much.
Alexander, go ahead, please.
I'm back. So first of all, let me note that Dean Joan Palladino and Chair of the Nursing Department, Jeanette Lupinacci, are here to answer questions. But let me introduce this opportunity first, which is to say that we have, again, some thriving nursing programs from RN to BSN to EDD to DNP, and they're going very well. This is the missing piece, and it is important to have this option because many students come to nursing and they're interested in it a little bit too late to join the first masters. And this gives them that chance if they majored in psychology or biology or any number of things. Our health and wellness program, for example, that's very, very strong, but they didn't declare the traditional nursing path soon enough, or they weren't ready for it, or they didn't know. And also career changers after this are available. So this gives that one more option. As you know, there is continuous demand for additional trained nurses in the state and in the region. So we're hoping that this will give another option. And I'm going to turn it over to Joan and Jeanette for any questions.
Can I just
May I ask, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to add also really quickly, I'm Joan Palladino. When I was working with the Connecticut Horizons grant, the one that the governor had, you know, to increase nurses in Connecticut, we are still falling very short in the number of nurses going to be needed statewide. And one of the initiatives this Connecticut Horizons was really focusing on was an accelerated program. And it was, as Missy said, the only missing piece we have. And we're the really only nursing program in that western part of the state, except for the Norwalk Community College. But our partners, especially Nuvance with the other partners, really want this program because we produce their nurses. But the other interesting thing about our program is we've made it so that it's the exact same curriculum and courses as our traditional program. So while it only takes a year, two things happen with that. It's more cost effective because there can take some courses will be extra in the summer, but many will be taken during the school year. But the second thing is it's very rigorous, and many students don't realize how rigorous it's going to be, and they don't make it. But because it's the same program we have, they can slide into our generic program and not lose anything if that were the case. So it's kind of a double win in that way. So then I could take any other questions anybody might have.
May I ask the State's Chief Workforce Officer, Ms. Varians, if she comments?
Good morning, everyone. The Office of Workforce Strategy is very excited about this opportunity and the work that you're doing on the accelerated program. As you mentioned, CT Health Horizons was designed to help address the shortages in RN nurses and mental health providers across the state. We greatly appreciate the role that CSCU has played in helping to facilitate the implementation of the program and the fact that you're bringing this directly to a campus in a rural part of Connecticut that really has a large demand and an employer partner is very exciting. And it's exciting to see the level of collaboration between the state agencies that helped roll this program out in support of the governor and the General Assembly. Nursing continues to be one of the top demand shortages in the state of Connecticut. So we have over 3,000 nurses that are that we're short here in Connecticut. So every opportunity that we have to enhance our nursing educational programs is greatly welcome. So thank you very much for your work and effort on this program. We're very excited to support it.
Thank you. And I
Thank
want
you
to
very much for
Welcome.
Ms. Palladino.
No, I just want to say thank you. You know, we appreciate all, you know, your words, and we worked very hard, myself and Jeanette Lupinacci, to make sure this came to, you know, fruition with the support of our provost.
And thank you very much for your work on it.
Thank you. Comments, questions from the regents? No.
Regent Bloom, Rick Porth. I just want to say that I'm excited when I hear about our work with the Governor's Workforce Council and the Office of Workforce. It's really important, and more and more I believe that we can play we already do, but we can build on the role we play and help many more young people and other people as well to get the credits or the licenses or certificates that they need to get a great job. So it's exciting to hear about that collaboration. So thanks.
Thank you, Regent
I
Porth.
second Regent Forth's comments, both the collaborative aspects and the unmet needs in terms of a very important part of what's going on in our communities and the state. So I just second your comments.
And this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for students, as you said earlier, who didn't start out with aspirations for a career in nursing and have a degree to take the program, which I gather is 1 year academic year bracketed by 2 summers, and complete their preparation for passing the licensure exam.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yep, that's correct. Yep.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of approving the program?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Program is approved. Congratulations. Good luck. And I hope the students do well.
Thank you, everyone.
So do we.
Yes, I'm sure you do. Next item is the 5 discussion and presentation on the teaching of reading. A few meetings ago, Regent James had talked about the teaching of reading as an item that she and others would be interested in the committee discussing. And we have arranged that. Dr. Stephen Haggadas, of the Dean of Education at Southern's College of Education, is going to discuss the program. Provost Kathoria, would you like to introduce him?
So Dr. Stephen Hegedus, Dean of the College of Education at Southern Connecticut State University, has joined us today to give us a brief presentation on the teaching of reading, and he'll be joining, some of his colleagues will be joining him as well. So Stephen, do you want to start the presentation?
Yes, thank you, Provost. Thank you, Regent Bloom, and all the committee members. So thank you, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's a really important topic, and we thank Regent James for posing the question that led to this presentation today. I'm joined by 3 of my learned colleagues that comprise the reading program faculty in the College of Education. That's Dr. Regine Randall, Dr. Laura Reynolds, and Dr. Louise Shaw. And they're going to be presenting the majority of the presentation today. But I just wanted to start with a slide on prefacing the work that we're doing. And really, as some points of pride, our reading programs are accredited by the International Dyslexia Association as the only one in Connecticut, as well as being nationally accredited as well under the umbrella of CAPE, as well as having recognition with the International Literacy Association. And as you well know from much of this work, it's really important for accreditation to have accreditation. It's national recognition, but it's a lot of hard work, and it's a testimony to the work of the faculty as well as the students as well at Southern. There's a lot of work that goes on within our reading programs between our graduate students and school pupils as well. So again, we're very proud of the Barack Obama Magnet University School, which is on our campus, that the Board of Regents agreed to some years ago, and the good work that's going on there is worth a presentation as well. We're very excited about what has come about by having a public school on a public university campus as well. And some of the reading programs has engaged in World Read Day, World Read Aloud Day, and also working closely with some of the students and parents within that school. There are literacy conferences, and our faculty who will lead the presentation today are actively involved in multiple efforts, both through work with our legislators and with communities and conferences within Connecticut and around. And secondly, the work that the faculty have engaged in reaches out to several schools as well. And this has had actually a real impact on reading scores within the schools of the students that worked with. So it's a win-win. Our master's students are learning within their graduate programs, and students in schools are getting significant work and impact because of that. So it's a really nice, mutually beneficial project. And there are, again, as I mentioned just before, several, each of our faculty here today have worked closely with various task forces and committees and group work within Connecticut. So today we're going to be presenting to you where we're at with the state of reading from really a research expert perspective as well. So the heart of this presentation was posed by Regent James in a previous meeting. How will current reading curricular changes impact the future and effectiveness of reading instruction and intervention? And we hope that we will be able to at least begin to address that question today in our work. And now I'm going to hand it off to my colleagues. I don't know who will be the first one taking the lead. Will it be Louise?
I think it's Laura.
Laura.
Oh, Regine. I'm sorry, Regine.
Thank you.
Regine, I think you're muted.
Okay. Can you hear me now? All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Regine Rando, and I'm one of the faculty members in grad reading, which is in the Department of Curriculum and Learning within the College of Ed. So, I just wanted to start off talking a little bit about Scarborough's reading rope. Many of you may recognize this. It's been around for more than 20 years, and it was actually, she conceptualized it based on some earlier research, but it still remains a very helpful way to parse the strands that contribute to skilled reading. So if you look at the word recognition, which is on the lower half of the infographic, you can see that it actually begins with phonological awareness, and that's preprint. And with phonological awareness, children develop an understanding of the sound structure of our language. And what it really comes down to is that we can arrange and order sounds to create a wonderfully wide warehouse of words with distinct meaning and usage. And that's very important for later reading for developing later reading skills. Also, the language comprehension strand begins developing before children can read, but then it rapidly accelerates once they can decode and learn from print. So, Louise, if you want to jump to the next slide. And I think this is also helpful and thinking about the kinds of skills that go into reading achievement. So what's exciting about reading development and achievement is that we're all truly lifelong learners, and the decoding strand is a set of constrained skills with ceilings, so to speak. You know, we have 26 letters in the alphabet, so that's what you're going to learn, those 26 letters. But those skills create a bridge to the unconstrained skills that are, in theory, only limited to the degree which our language is limited. We can all become better readers, we can all become better writers, and we can all develop new understandings of topics and issues through reading. Yet, this is really important, a bridge is not a guarantee, and nor does successful decoding by itself lead to later reading success. So Dr. Tim Shanahan, you may be familiar with some of his work, said, you know, as important as decoding is, it doesn't create a vaccination effect. And what that means is that we really need age-appropriate and nuanced reading instruction in every grade for students to develop both the basic and more advanced literacy skills that are, you know, that are needed by everyone living in this 21st century. So that was my very quick overview of those two slides. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Louise Shaw, and so we often hear the phrase the science of reading being bandied about as a singular and static idea. However, we know it's really important to think about this more broadly as the science informing what we know about how reading works, how people learn to read, and effective instruction for all readers. In 2000, the National Reading Panel published a meta-analysis evaluating existing research and evidence to find best ways of teaching children to read. In summary, the research they examined supported these 5 elements or pillars of reading instruction: phonemic awareness, phonics, oral reading fluency, vocabulary knowledge and background knowledge, and language comprehension and strategies. Although the National Reading Panel report is more than 20 years old, and newer research continuously increases our knowledge about reading, these 5 pillars are still foundational to effective reading instruction in intervention. And we'll find these in the new reading programs that are recommended by the state for schools. However, research, as it should be, is always evolving. But we also know that we can't rest on the 5 pillars alone for guiding effective reading instruction and intervention. Literacy doesn't happen in a vacuum. There are other things that impact it. Reading is a complex activity, and we must also consider the reader's background knowledge, their interests and abilities, in addition to the reading skills that comprise the 5 pillars. This means that effective reading instruction is also a complex activity. So with the focus on reading instruction, and this is thinking a little bit about where we're going as well, with the focus on reading instruction, a false dichotomy has developed between reading and writing. They're inextricably linked, so we need to bring writing instruction back more fully into the picture with the reading. We also need to consider flexible classroom organization. And most importantly, we need to make sure, to continue making sure that expert instruction and intervention are available to all students. Now, Laura, I'll pass off to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Reynolds. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the science of reading is not. So it is not a program or a specific intervention or a product that you can buy. Even though the Connecticut legislation now does mandate certain programs that contain a curriculum that reflects the science of reading. It does involve teacher knowledge, though. And I think you can be very happy that Connecticut is at the forefront of this because of the requirement that all teachers, all elementary, special ed, and bilingual teachers pass the Foundations of Reading test. This test has just been revised, and it is quite rigorous. It's if you can pass that test, you know quite a bit about the teaching of reading. It is not just phonics-based skills. That's only one strand. We have, I think the way that we've taught has always been with explicit instruction in phonics. But generally speaking, the legislation has reflected this kind of importance that phonics instruction is presented and presented in an explicit way. So it is important, but it, again, only one strand of that reading rope that we talked about. It is not complete. You know, the science of reading is still evolving. An example of this is something that happened right here in Connecticut. The whole idea of phonemic awareness did not exist in the classroom until maybe early 2000s. And I'm old enough to remember when we were not teaching it. It began in Haskins Lab in New Haven in the late 70s. After that first kind of burst of research, more large studies, studies were done in the 80s. In the 90s, it finally got to the universities. I remember taking a 1-credit course in the late 90s on this brand new thing, phonemic awareness, that was, you know, just so revolutionary. And then it came into the science of the National Reading Panel in the year 2000, and finally made it into the classrooms after that. So it takes time for research to reach the classroom. That's something that hopefully we can accelerate. But more research is being done all the time. We have lots of gaps. We need to know more about how to teach reading to English learners. There's lots of things that we still need to study. And I just wanted to return one more time to Scarborough's rope. If you look at the very bottom, you see LC times D equals RC. That represents language comprehension and all the background knowledge that's needed to comprehend language, times decoding equals reading comprehension. And it's times, so that if you're a perfect decoder, but you have very little background knowledge, you're going to have very little reading comprehension. If you've got lots and lots of language and background knowledge, but can't decode, as is the case with many children with dyslexia, you will still have very little reading comprehension. So both of these strands need to be developed. I really want to assert that with all of our emphasis on the word recognition that has been the center of the legislation, that we cannot forget about the background knowledge and vocabulary that's needed. I really think this is the essence of the opportunity gap that we have in Connecticut. It's much harder and harder to measure and probably harder to teach things, all the background knowledge that you need to have in the vocabulary. And I assert that you can do that at the same time as teaching children the word recognition strand. You can do that from the very beginning of their schooling, starting in pre-K and going all the way up. And for our children in the urban areas and our poorer areas, I think this is vital. As Dr. Randall said, the word recognition part is kind of not easy, but there's a limit to it. We can do it. We know how to do it. But the other part is just, you know, vast. There's so much to learn. I remember my big aha moment when I first connected taking a field trips with reading comprehension for the little kids. You know, they were all reading about farms and animals, and, you know, we had pictures of pigs and things like that. But when they took that field trip and they felt the crunchy straw and they saw how big the pig was and smelled the smells of the farm, all of that they're going to remember. And the next book they read about a farm is going to be so much richer and nuanced in the way that they comprehend it. There was a very famous study called the baseball study, where they took poor readers and good readers. They kind of divided them according to what the measures they had, and they gave them a baseball story to read. But in this case, the poor readers had a lot of background knowledge about baseball, and the so-called good readers did not have that background knowledge. Well, you can imagine which group scored better on their comprehension test. It was the one with the background knowledge and the vocabulary of the topic that they were reading. We know in our suburban schools, kids get all of that from the rich experiences that their parents give them. I assert that we really should be providing this to our inner cities with things that were always popular, like project-based learning and integrated units and thematic units and even, you know, in the middle schools, they often work together, the social studies teachers and the science teachers and the English teachers. But all of this creates this rich background knowledge and vocabulary and provides the best way to learn it by, you know, having multiple exposures to it through the different content areas. That we need to pay attention, as much attention to this as we do to the word recognition strand, if we really want to serve all the children of Connecticut. And I think this ends our presentation, but we're happy to take questions.
Thank you, Laura.
Okay.
Thank you for this opportunity, and appreciate the time. We have listed also the email addresses. Oh, they've just left the screen. The last slide were your emails. Maybe you don't want them to contact you.
No. Kayla has our presentation, but I can certainly, I'm not sure.
I just wanted to, one last comment. This was, you know, a brief presentation to try and begin to address the question. It can go a lot deeper and a lot in various areas. So if you wish to follow up outside the meetings with any particular area, we're very open to continue the discussion.
Thank you, Dean Haggerty. Regent Stewart. Regent James.
I have a fairly long list of questions, so I think I'm going to have to be one of those people to follow up. So let me, in no particular order, just as we were presenting the information. I'm really pleased to see us talking about partnerships. One of the ones, partnerships that I saw potentially missing in that slide was, I used to be on the board of Reading is Fundamental, and one of the factors of good readers was also children having access to books. And I didn't see that as a potential partnership opportunity with what we're doing with respect to Connecticut. But I think it also brings the bigger question of, now that everything is digital, the importance, or what is the importance of actual physical books versus digital books in terms of developing reading skills for children. So that's not a question that I want you to answer today, but I'm interested in that dynamic, because we're really not doing those Reading is Fundamental exercises throughout the state of Connecticut the way we did, 10 or 20 years ago. So I don't know if that's been has had any impact on what is happening with the development. I know you said you weren't discussing specific programmatic ways of thinking in terms of the debate between whole language versus skills. And I was pleased to say that hear you say it's not one or the other, it's a complex arrangement of both. Second question, decoding. And you made a brief reference to teaching the appropriate, assessing the appropriate levels at different stages of teaching. But I'd like to hear a little bit more about how we do that. How do you test whether the child at an age appropriate is actually doing that progression from decoding to actual comprehension and language comprehension? And what tools do you have to identify whether that progression is happening at the appropriate place. I liked the context of appropriate text, and specifically a reference to the cultural relevance for the students so that they have that connection. The baseball story is an absolute wonderful example of that in relation to a sport. But because our school systems are now comprised of so many different cultures and languages, and I don't know how you integrate all of that into the breadth of cultural experiences that children can relate to. And unfortunately, I see the trend now of what's happening nationally is removing all of those texts and uncontextual situations. So it feels like we are going in, as we have a better understanding of teaching reading skills, we also have a contravailing, opposition to what that means as far as giving students the exposure that they need to be successful. And you mentioned that Connecticut was really pretty advanced in particularly the foundations of reading. And what opportunity is there for us as a statewide learning to convey that or share that with other states? Is there a long-term thought about, if we're leading in a particular area, how do we publish that research, teach that methodology so we can not only stand out as a leader, but also share that knowledge and the research that we are currently doing? And I think the one thing, the presentation, it could be richer in terms of data as we look at how we're measuring the progress and how the changes that we're making or are improving the reading skills, and by what measures. And the last thing I want to say is there's a growing number of incidents of autism in our country. It's a much higher percentage. And I'm curious as to whether anyone has thought about the relationship between reading skills and how you address that with that population. And I say that because most people who are on the spectrum, they tend to have social and language and comprehension disconnects. So they don't read social cues. They don't understand context, which is what makes them so awkward socially. So I see that there's a connection with, as we learn more about reading skills, how that can actually help impact the effects of autism, or the growing population of students that's actually serving with that. So I'm obviously very interested in this topic, and I found today's presentation very interesting. It shed some light, but it also raised more questions.
Any, yes, Dean, did you want to make a
Just a
response?
very brief response. Thank you so much, Regent James. Those are great questions, and I'm glad. I'm sure my colleagues here will be able to address some of them. The last question you asked, we also house at our college here at Southern a Center for Excellence in Autism Spectrum Disorder, led by a world leader, Dr. Fred Volkmar. And I'm happy to connect you, because there is a growing body of research within that area of reading skills as well. So I won't respond here, but I can certainly send you some contact or some details on that. But I don't know if Regine, Louise, Laura, then anything specific, or we can follow up with the Regent with responses to those questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think these are great questions. Thank you.
Full disclosure, I have a son who's on the spectrum who decoded so well, he was mistakenly identified as having very high reading skills in first and second grade, because he walked into first grade with those decoding skills. It
Mhm.
wasn't until third grade that they realized there was a total disconnect between his actual comprehension. And I'm very familiar with Dr. Volkmar because my son was evaluated by the Yale Child Study School when he was about 3 or 4. So I've been following his work, but I'm very, because I've been involved in, as I said, reading is fundamental, higher education, teaching, pleased to see the work and the research that you are doing and addressing these complex areas. So it's not just the cookie cutter approach to teaching reading. And I'd like to see us continue to invest in that area.
Valerius, did you have?
Yes, thank you so much for the really informative presentation. I'm really interested, again, as we go back to partnerships and collaboration. I know that this topic is very important to the State Department of Education and to our legislators. So I was wondering how we're helping to inform the work that the State Department is doing with regarding their special division on teaching. And then also, how can we help inform our legislators on the most appropriate way in which they can help ensure that all of our students become good readers, right? We don't start off as good readers. I also had a son who struggled in reading and had a speech problem, which interestingly led to a lot of his reading comprehension issues early on. So that's my kind of question to you is how are we informing, or your work informing those other institutions?
Dean?
So in part, I'm the past president of the AACTE Connecticut State Chapter of the American Association Colleges of Teacher Ed, which is a group of 13 public and private, so all of the CSU universities and some privates are on that. And we are active in a lot of, particularly in this area. It's a big topic during our legislative sessions, particularly with the establishment of the Office of Dyslexia within the CSDE. And I'm part of the legislative subcommittee, so we're actively reaching out to our legislators prior to the session, during now, with various points, both to educate, but also to hear what what their constituents are concerned with. Dyslexia has been an ongoing major topic of interest, but I think, and my colleagues here have often testified, or we've welcomed some of our legislators from the Education Committee down to Southern as well. And I think it's ongoing that we need to broaden the understanding of what is the science of reading. I think that's critical, and it's, again, not just through our programs, but through the impact where this is a research-informed discussion. So we are active, both myself and colleagues here and colleagues across the CSUs as well, in reaching out to discuss these and other important topics that are involved in teacher preparation and educator preparation. Because every session, there are a number of bills that are being developed in this area.
Thank you very much for that.
If I may, I want to follow up with Regent James' questions. I have two questions, some of which based on my oldest. I learned in 1902 when Dick and Jane were running around.
Oh dear, Ira, you have
Oh,
We've lost his connection.
Yes.
And
oh no.
Oh.
well,
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Regent Bloom, can you hear me? We have lost Regent Bloom, it appears. And there he is.
yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. We're having a storm. I think this is causing some connecting problems down here. I have two questions. One, we are there is an ongoing, I understand from my general reading, disagreements about the approach to the teaching of reading, and whether phonics is or is not the the best way. So I'd be appreciated if you have. I'm sure you're aware of this. Some comment about that. And secondly, we've evolved. I find myself reading more and more on the screen, as opposed to, although I have a great preference for books and printed material. A lot of what I have to read now turns out to be on a screen, and I don't know how we're dealing with young students' approach. I mean, the kids seem to be spending all their time on a screen. So how that is affecting how you teach reading?
I'd be happy to answer the second question if Louise or Regine wants to answer the first one.
Oh, I thought you were going to go ahead and answer it. I'm
No.
sorry.
Oh.
Go ahead, Regine. Sorry.
I was just going to say, in terms of learning to decode and phonics, phonics gets a lot of bad press. There's really something magical about the way that we arrange letters to produce certain sounds and create words, and understanding word parts can also help with comprehension, thinking of morphemes, words, the parts of the words that have meaning. So I don't think there's any real disagreement except by people that are extreme on one side of the argument, that explicit and systematic phonics is a very important part of beginning reading instruction. I think the debate heats up, so to speak, as to how much is necessary. And children don't need 2 hours of phonics instruction, especially if that means that we eliminate things like social studies and science from the curriculum, even for the younger children, because as Dr. Reynolds had mentioned, it's fascinating to learn about our world. It's just fascinating. And creating that interest is what leads to greater interest in reading, because we learn so much. Even little children, they talk about learning to read and reading to learn, but that's not, we're always learning, when we can interact with text. So I hope that gives a little bit of it's a little bit of an answer to your question.
If I may, it might be helpful to know also that our teachers in our graduate reading program often ask, why do people think that we should be at one extreme or the other when children need what they need to read? And if it's phonics, then we need to give them phonics. If it's more, background knowledge, we need to give them what they need. And our students are aware of that. Our teachers in Connecticut are aware of that. And so the arguments about how we're teaching, I don't think that's happening with the teachers themselves as much as it might seem. If that might be helpful.
It is helpful. Thank you. That is helpful.
As to your, okay.
Any about the digital reading? I'm curious.
So that's a really good question, and I don't think we have an answer for it yet. But you should know that there is no part of our brain that is set up for reading. So that every time a child learns to read, they have to kind of co-opt other parts of the brain and turn them into reading parts of the brain, so that the whole reading circuit is built brand new every time a child learns to read. And it can change depending on the medium, right? If you're only reading one type of text or another type of text, there's a possibility for that whole reading circuit to vary. So we really don't know right now. Marianne Wolf has done a lot of work on that. There's a book she wrote called Reader Come Home that you might be interested in. But she's very concerned that, especially when you can hyperlink out of the text, that kind of reading doesn't allow for deep comprehension. So that you need to, when you really, when you said yourself, and I agree, when you're reading certain types of text, you might be able to read, like all my junky reading I do on my Kindle. But if I really want to read something that I need to understand, I need a book in my hand, because I need to go back and look at and write on my pages and go forward and stop and think. And that type of thing is harder when you're reading a digital text. Also, that opportunity to hyperlink out of it might also be disrupting deep comprehension. On the other hand, those types of texts are really good for some children, like children with dyslexia. So Marianne Wolf said we are experimenting on a generation of children. So that's not very helpful, but we just really don't know all the answers right now.
And one of the one of the benefits, I think, of COVID and the children being online reading, and Laura, I think you are the one who shared this with me, that there are book companies that actually put their books online and available to all the children. So talking about accessibility, as Regent James was, the online texts make books available to a lot of children that may not be able to access them as easily. It may not be ideal, but it does open up possibilities for children who have difficulty getting texts.
Good point. When you're reading a book, as you said, you can go back and forth, and you can jump back to, if it's a novel, who this character was. Whereas on the line, it's sometimes much harder to do this. And the question, I guess, the underlying question I have is, you've alluded to, is the fact that the kids are spending as much time as they are on a screen, making it harder for them to learn to deal with books and the old-fashioned newspapers and things of that sort.
Well, just a quick comment, and then, everyone, I just want to take a moment. Thank you. I'm going to have to jump off at 11 for another appointment, but in terms of the online reading, I think what can happen is that everything is so fast online with web-based technologies, and I think it can give students the false impression that deep understanding is equally quick. We really need to slow our students down a little bit, to give them time to talk about texts, to write about texts, to compare what one source has said to another source. And I also think that caution for becoming overly dependent on digital technologies is that's not differentiation. And as Dr. Shaw was saying, we need to give different students what they need. And so while some students may have terrific success navigating online texts, other students will find that more challenging. And so, I want students to realize that deep understanding takes time. It's not a click away, even though a text could be a click away.
This is something we just need more research on. We just don't know all the answers yet.
Other questions, comments from the regents?
Just wanted to add, there's also now so much more advances in brain sciences, in how we can look at brain activity, and the technology's advanced incredibly. I attend a conference each year on learning and the brain, and it's a mixture of neuroscientists, educators, teachers, counselors. It's a wonderful conference. And now what we can do in terms of actually being able to scan brain activity in toddlers, in babies, which we couldn't do before. We're learning so much about language acquisition that I think those advances in science is going to be really informative. It's really quite incredible.
Could I just mention that we had a lot of other questions that we weren't able to get to. And I didn't want to seem like we were ignoring them, but I don't know the best way to perhaps answer those questions.
We could write something up and send it back to the group.
That'd be okay. I don't want to ignore some of these wonderful questions we received.
I think this is an ongoing dialogue, and I very much appreciate the information that we were given today and the focus on this topic, and particularly the efforts that the system is making in this area. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I think we've lost Ira again. Oh,
There he is.
back.
Yeah, here I am. I'm sorry. I don't know what it's something is messing up. We're down here where I am in this corner of the state. Any other Regent James, any other questions or comments?
No, I thank you very, very much. It's been informative and
Yes, and I want to thank you also. I found this very informative too. So thank you very much for the presentation. And I think you've given us, if we want more information, I think you've given us a way to access that. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there were two informational items, one of which we touched on. I think that's I seeing no other business on the agenda. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
so moved.
Second.
Second, finally got a second. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you for, I want to thank the Chief Workforce Officer for her participation here, which was I think, very helpful. So very appreciative of that. And when we drop off, if the regents would stay for a few minutes on, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And your live streaming has ended.